recently I saw a meme posted on the Facebook page of A Science Enthusiast, that's the name of the page that I follow, critiquing a tweet about depression by Katie Hopkins. Here is that meme. Professional provocateur, Katie Hopkins, she caused her usual amount of polarizing furore when she posted this tweet a while ago suggesting that if you are depressed, you simply need to get out and run. The science guys found this incredulous and demonstrated and suggested some fundamental flaws in what she had written, which kind of formed the bottom half of the meme. Many other people have commented and created memes about the problems that this type of ignorant attitude has, and people who are this ignorant about mental health probably need to be educated in it. And it's this attitude towards receiving treatment and gaining a proper diagnosis that creates more stigma and more of a problem. If you go and read the comments on this thread or similar threads, you'll see, most people do not dispute that there are, real physical and mental health benefits to be had from physical exercise. And I certainly do not dispute that either. Part of the reason that I run so much is for my own mental health and well-being. However, running or physical exercise should most certainly not replace prescribed drugs altogether or replace proper advice from a qualified medical professional. What qualifies someone to think they know better than doctors or psychiatrists, for example? Within the mental health field, particularly in relation to the application of hypnotherapy, which is where my own interest lies, of course, there often tends to be this sort of anti-medication or anti-conventional medical healthcare or anti-doctor, anti-psychiatrist attitude, which I just don't think does us any favours at all, in the field of hypnotherapy. The evidence actually tends to suggest that psychotherapeutic and medication solutions tend to both have pros and cons, and therefore they both warrant equal respect. Ideally, working in alliance and accordance with one another would be better and preferable. When you examine the work of major researchers and authors examining depression and hypnotherapy, they tend not to offer up any black and white conclusions. In the 90s and the early 2000s, Michael Yapko, for example, stated that depression can be managed in the majority of sufferers with medication, psychotherapy, or both. And whilst no one single antidepressant has really been shown to be superior in efficacy to another, therapeutic efficacy studies show some psychotherapies outperform others in treating depression. And these include cognitive and behavioral and interpersonal approaches, for example, as well as hypnosis, which has been shown to advance some of these when used in an adjunctive capacity. You look at studies by Kirsch and colleagues in the 90s, for example. Medication actually has some treatment advantages that we should definitely not overlook, such as a faster rate of symptom remission, greater effectiveness in treating certain vegetative symptoms, such as sleep and appetite disturbances, for example. Of course, medication has some disadvantages, such as reinforcing client passivity. This is a detrimental cornerstone of depression in some people. There's uncertain dosing and effectiveness, potentially negative side effects, habituation, and in some cases a drug may eventually just stop working, and higher initial rates of relapse. I recognise that pharmaceutical companies do have an eye on profiteering, but they cannot bring drugs to market without being trialled and tested thoroughly, and doctors are not solely or exclusively motivated by helping big pharma line their pockets and achieve greater profits. Psychotherapy also has some treatment advantages and disadvantages. The advantages of therapies focus on skill building and associated reduced relapse rate. The value of the therapeutic relationship, the greater degree of personal empowerment. the increased capacity for individualized rather than standardized treatment, and the potential not just to sort of perform a mop-up of pre-existing problems, but to teach the skills of prevention. Important stuff. I mean, medication is, by definition, relegated to a lesser role of mere reactivity to existing depression. But psychotherapy can and should proactively focus on teaching prevention skills. Good quality hypnotherapists do that. The disadvantages of psychotherapy is something we've got to be aware of too. So, for example, there's reliance on the level of clinician competence. How good is that therapist? Experience, judgment, effectiveness of different therapists varies greatly, and their education varies. The greater time lag between initiation of treatment and the remission of symptoms compared to medications. The lesser effect in reducing vegetative symptoms, and the potential detrimental side effects of exposure to a particular theoretical or philosophical stance, for example. Here in the UK, in recent years, as austerity policies kind of took a grip of the country, mental health funding has taken a hammering, big cuts. However, the importance of good mental health care provision within our NHS has been raised and highlighted by charities and practitioners, and the burden that mental health issues places upon the NHS, the workplace, schools, and beyond has meant that a couple of years back, David Cameron announced an extra £1 billion to the NHS for mental health services, while in more recent times, an extra £25 million for NHS organisations in England to improve mental health services for children and young people was announced by Theresa May. And also announced, an additional £15 million extra funding for mental health services in general. Many will see that as a drop in the ocean with regards to what's needed, but it's certainly a step in the right direction as far as I'm concerned. As it happens, Theresa May had said that extra funding was going into mental health provision. And here's the interesting thing. She said that addressing perceptions was just as important. And she said, we must get over the stigma. We must ensure that we're providing services for people with mental health issues. Now, as it happened, a recent Australian survey showed that 3 out of 4 patients with mental illness reported that they had experienced stigma. The same study also found that 1 in 4 members of the public thought that depression was a sign of weakness, and said that they would not employ a person with depression. 1 in 5 said that if they had depression, they would keep it to themselves. The findings of this survey, they're incredibly sad. They demonstrate how very real the stigma is. Many people are afraid to take mental health issues to a doctor, as it goes on their records. And may even cause career-related issues, if employers get to see those records. Thus, the government here in the UK have been announcing measures aimed at reducing the stigma surrounding mental illness. And the solutions will examine how mental health problems can be better supported in the workplace, and ways to improve services in schools. This has been really topical recently. How to work with GPs and the way that they certify mental illness. It's there, where it's being worked on. The stigma, it's a major issue. Even Theresa May actually stated, if we look at the issue of mental health in this country, I think it's more about stigma, the stigma that still attaches to mental health. And that brings me back, I kind of going to tie this all in together, make it all relevant to each other, to the Katie Hopkins tweet that I opened up on. When people with far-reaching voices start to state that medication is not what you need and you need to reject those notions. Likewise, when therapists, especially us hypnotherapists, supposed quality professionals, start to suggest that medication and pharmacological solutions are the bad guys, they're the puppets of big pharma, with our foil caps, and that their brand of therapy is the best solution, my brand is the best, for example. The stigma of seeking out the assistance of the readily available GP can get compounded with that kind of attitude. we run the risk of stopping people from going to their GP to get good quality help and be advised of the resources available. Many people will benefit greatly from what medication can offer them. As I stated earlier on, the evidence supports that. And that can also help these people to be in a place whereby they can subsequently seek out good quality evidence-based therapeutic solutions to help with prevention, leading to developing self-efficacy and a sense of capability in oneself thereafter. If we kind of consume our energy scaring people away from doctors and away from medication, we run the risk of adding to the problem. I think working in harmony with medical professionals and conventional medicine, that is a much better idea. It's more professional, it's more diligent, and it reflects better upon the kind of hypnotherapist that you choose to be. I think therapists of all kinds have an opportunity to really contribute something useful to the world in terms of lessening the stigma of mental health by educating the public effectively, diligently, and with solid evidence, and not just demonizing conventional solutions and instead, adding what we do to those, letting them complement each other. That's all today, folks. Let's help remove the stigma of mental health. We can contribute to that. Do subscribe to this channel. Go visit my college website. I send you my very best wishes. Goodbye for now.